Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, of course, we are studying the life of Sri Sarada Devi, the Holy Mother, as prepared for us by Swami Chaitananda. Swami Chaitananda, as you may know, has written many books over the decades. His very first was called Meditation and Its Methods, which you can still buy a copy of. It's a fine little book, Meditation and Its Methods. That was his first publication. So we are at the subhead, Bellermott through the eyes of Holy Mother. Now, we know that Holy Mother was the real leader, the real motive force, if you can say, behind Bellermott. And what the Swami writes is this. Although the mother spent most of her time in Calcutta and Jairambati, she kept a vigilant eye on Bellermott and the welfare of the monks. Now you can imagine, if the mother of the universe is keeping a vigilant eye, that's going to be very, very intense indeed. In 1919, and we need to keep in mind the mother lived until 1920. So this was close to the end of her life. In 1919, some women from Jairambati came to visit the mother in Calcutta. She arranged for them to visit Kalighat, Pareshnath, a Jain temple, Dakshineshwar, and Bellermott. When they returned from Bellermott, the mother inquired, "What did you see in Bellermott?" One lady replied, "Mother, we saw many big cows there. We do not have cows like that in our village." The mother asked, "Did you not visit the master's shrine? Did you not see how the monks have nicely displayed the master's articles? Did you not meet the disciples of the master?" And the lady replied, "Yes, we met them, and they took care of us very well because we had come from your village. They served food with loving care." "Those monks are doing wonderful work," Holy Mother said. One can attain virtue just by seeing them. Have you seen Dakshineshwar from the Ganges Ghat in Belur? In those days, because the air was not so dirty, you could see clearly across the river. You could see Dakshineshwar from the Ganges Ghat at Belur. And so it's only sometimes in the morning that one can see it. At least that was the case in 1999. Have you seen Dakshineshwar from the Ganges Ghat in Belur? Another woman responded, yes, we saw everything, but we have never seen cows like that before. This is so sweet. These village ladies, what occupied their attention, what caught their attention, was something that they could relate to from their village life. Yes, we saw everything, but we have never seen cows like that before. One of the reasons, of course, that they were so big and so healthy is that they were very well cared for and very well fed. Once a devotee asked, Mother, how can those who are poor and cannot afford to go to Varanasi and other holy places achieve the merit of such pilgrimage? Let me repeat the question. Once a devotee asked, Mother, how can those who are poor and cannot afford to go to Varanasi and other holy places achieve the merit of such pilgrimage? She replied, why, they can achieve the same merit by visiting Dakshineshwar or Belur Math, provided they have genuine faith. He, the Lord, for whom one visits Varanasi, is present in Dakshineshwar and Belur. Of course, this is a gesture toward the aspect of Sri Ramakrishna that was a manifestation, an incarnation of Shiva as well as of Vishnu. A woman disciple of the mother recalled, one day an old woman devotee told me, nowadays there is no spirituality in the math and other places. I reported this to the mother. Because I read it so poorly, let me say it again. A woman disciple of the mother recalled, one day an old woman devotee told me, nowadays there is no spirituality in the math and other places. I reported this to the mother. Startled, she said, if there is any true religion, it can be found only here in Udbodhan House and in Belur Math. I think that's a potent instruction for all of us. If there is any true religion, it can be found only here in Udbodhan and in Belur Math. She didn't mean that other religions were not true. She simply meant that the embodiment of those religions was most potent in where she was living and where the master now lived in Belur Math. So before we move on to the next subhead, any comments or questions about what was just read? The mother and her relationship with Belur Math.
Brother Shankar, I want to ask you one question.
Yes, Sham.
Holy Mother was deeply involved with Belur Math, or was just a visitor?
No, she was, it is said, she kept a vigilant eye on Belur Math. She knew this was the mother of the universe. She did not have to visit to know what was going on there. as was said by her one time when she was asked Now, we remember that Swami Brahmananda, Raja Maharaj, was president of the Ramakrishna order. And one time, one of Mother's woman devotees said to her, "Oh, Mother, all the other boys," that means the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, who had become monks, "all the other boys come to see you here at Udbodhan. But Brahmananda, Raja Maharaj, never comes. Why is that?" And Mother simply said, "Oh, Rakal, whenever I wish to see him, he appears before me." So we can imagine that this was true of all aspects of Belrumat. She was keeping an eye. She knew everyone who was housed there, whether she knew them as a personal thing or simply in her role as spiritual mistress of the place. She knew them all and gave them guidance from time to time. So no, she was deeply involved, but someone who just seeing her travel from Udbodhan to Jairambati and occasionally going to Belrumat, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know that Saradananda, Premananda, all of the people who were responsible for that place, for that matter, Vivekananda when he was alive, all consulted with her and took her decisions without debate. Very good question. Anything else from anyone?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. The next subhead is Holy Mother and some disciples of the Master. Now, this is again Chaitanananda speaking. In previous chapters, we have written about Swamis Adbhutananda, Advaitananda, Yogananda, Trigunatitananda, and Saradananda, who were Holy Mother's attendants. So let's just review that list again. Adbhutananda, who was Latu Maharaj, the man who never learned to read and write, but knew many scriptures by heart and was totally devoted to the mother. Advaitananda, an older man, Yogananda, Trigunatitananda. Trigunatitananda went on to head the Vedanta Society of Northern California and build the temple in San Francisco, now called the Old Temple. And Mother used to visit him there when sometimes he would come to the platform to speak, and he would get choked up and begin to weep. And the reason was that he would see Mother come through the back door of the chapel and sit on a bench in the back. So Swami Trigunatitananda. And of course Saradananda, who was the one who took care of Mother for the years up to the end of her life. So these were Holy Mother's attendants. We also wrote a chapter on Swami Vivekananda and Holy Mother. It is wonderful to see how these disciples loved, respected, looked after, and interacted with the Mother. Every one of the Master's disciples considered Holy Mother's decision on any crucial matter to be final, and they obeyed it implicitly. By that he means they didn't argue with her, though they might have a different opinion, they might have a different thought, as Vivekananda did when there was this terrible famine and plague shortly after they'd purchased the Belrumat property. And he was going to sell the property. But of course he consulted with the mother, and the mother said, no, you and Raja Maharaj and a few of the others may be able to go live under the trees along the Ganges. But these other boys who are coming, they could not do that. They need a home. So keep Belramat and build it up. And Vivekananda didn't murmur a word of argument. He simply, as he said, as the Swami writes, he decided her decision was final and obeyed it. By the grace of their guru, Sri Ramakrishna, they realized that the master and the mother were the same divine being in two forms. Now, this can't be stressed enough for us as devotees. That which incarnates, as we know, takes both the feminine and the masculine forms, genders, Sitaram, Radhakrishna. Though it's not much emphasized in the Christian church, the beloved companion, Mary Magdalene, and his mother, Mary. So the master and the mother were the same divine being, which is genderless, in two different forms. These disciples realized that the mother's power was working behind them and the Ramakrishna order. The following quotes indicate how some of the disciples understood Holy Mother. Swami Brahmananda said, "Who can understand our mother? Even great yogis cannot understand her, what to speak of others. It is possible. Is it possible?" I'll read that again. Who can understand our mother? Even great yogis cannot understand her, what to speak of others. Is it possible for an ordinary human being to digest the worship of an incarnation like Sri Ramakrishna? From this, one may understand what a great fountain of power the mother is. We have seen with our own eyes that the mother has been taking the sins and afflictions of many people upon herself and giving them liberation. Now, when Brahmananda said we have seen with our own eyes, he meant that very quite literally. He could see what he was talking about. We have seen with our own eyes that the mother has been taking the sins and afflictions of many people upon herself and giving them liberation. He didn't just mean she'd given diksha, initiation to many people. He could see what she was doing for them. Can anyone but the Divine Mother have this power? And of course, if you read the Chandi, if you read the Devi Mahatmyam, you'll read the description of this power of the Mother. Can anyone but the Divine Mother have this power? It is extremely difficult to understand the Mother. She moves around with her face veiled like an ordinary woman, but in reality, she's the Mother of the universe. Could we have recognized her if the Master himself had not revealed to us who she was? Even the Master said that the Mother is like a rich woman who does her business from behind a screen. In those days, and say the Rani Rasmani, the woman who built the Dakshineshwar temple, if you came to see her on some business, she would not be seen by you. She would speak to you from behind a screen. And so Sri Ramakrishna said, the mother's like that. could we have recognized her if the Master himself had not revealed to us who she was? Our mother is Mahamaya herself. Now just let that rest on your heart. What is Mahamaya? Everything that we can experience in any way. Any and everything that we can experience in any way. Supersensuously, through our senses, as long as it remains an experience, it is Mahamaya. It is the Mother herself. But such is her Maya that none can understand her. Inside, the great ocean of realization. Outside, absolute calm. How ordinary and simple she appears. Even the incarnations cannot keep divine moods under control. Sri Ramakrishna manifested them outwardly. But she is extremely difficult to understand. But it is extremely difficult to understand the Mother, how she has kept us all deluded by her motherly love. If you want the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, first propitiate the Mother. The Mother is the supreme primordial power herself. The Mother is the supreme primordial power herself. She holds the key to the knowledge of Brahman in her hand. Liberation, bliss, and all that are in the Mother's keeping. There is no difference between Sri Ramakrishna and the Mother. Through Mother's grace, the attainment of liberation becomes easy. Now, so powerful was what was just read that before we go on to Swami Saradeshananda, is there any comment or question about the Mother and what Swami Brahmananda said about her?
Brother Shankara, I need one clarification.
Yes, dear.
Did I hear you say that Holy Mother visited Swami Trigunath
No, no,
and
no, no, not physically,
oh,
but in a form that he could see. And this happened not once, but many times. Swami Trigunatitananda was the head of the Vedanta Society of Northern California, and he built that temple in 1905. It's now called the Old Temple. It was recently restored, fully restored. If you have a chance, please do visit there. It's an immensely powerful, and it's inexpressible what it's like to go in that chapel. It is.
yeah, but we visited there, but it was still closed.
Yes,
And they don't allow people inside, I think.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. You just have to go through the new temple,
Okay.
and yes, if you make application and tell them who you are and who your guru is and so on, they will most happily assign a monk to take you there.
Brother Shankara, this is the chapel in the new temple, you said?
No, the chapel in the old temple. The chapel in the old temple.
Oh, okay.
Swami Trigunatitananda had nothing to do with the new temple. That was built by Swami Ashokananda.
I had a chance to visit that, but not the old temple when I was there last year, which was a shame.
Many people don't even know that the old temple is available to them. As Sham just said, he was under the impression they don't allow people to go there. Well, that's not so. They restored it specifically so that it could be visited and it could be experienced very much like it was at the time that it was built in 1905. That temple survived the 1906 earthquake and fire, which practically leveled San Francisco. I mean, really, there was very little left standing after that earthquake and fire. And yet that temple, so beautifully designed and of course protected as it was, came through virtually without a scratch. So, but anyway, Trigunatitananda and the mother, Trigunatitananda being the head minister there, was the one who spoke on Sundays most often. Sometimes he would come out of the door behind, from his office. His office had a door into the chapel. He'd come out of his office into the chapel and stand at the rostrum, at the podium, and he wouldn't be able to speak for some time. He would choke up and tears would come from his eyes. And the reason being that, there was a bench on the back where the monastics sat. There were a few monastics even in Trigunatitananda's day. Well, there was a door into the chapel from the back. You can see that door, the bench, and all that. Now, what Trigunatitanandaji was seeing that caused him to be so emotional was his beloved mother, Sri Sarada Devi, would come through that door. I mean, she would actually open the door. It wasn't like she walked through it like a yogi might walk through a wall. She actually opened the door, closed it behind her, and came and sat on the bench. Now, no one else saw her, of course. It was her subtle form. It was not her physical form. He built the temple in 1905. She didn't leave the body until 1920. So there were those years when he was speaking. She was in Jairambati or Kolkata or wherever she was. But her subtle form would appear to him. And you can go sit on that bench now.
Thank you.
Anything else? These are wonderful questions, Sham. Thank you for asking them.
It's quite amazing, Brother Shankara. That little.
Yes, it is amazing. And yet it is a reality. And you can, if you make arrangements ahead of time, you can visit the old temple. They'll assign a monk to take you there and show you all around. And that monk will no doubt be fully aware of where Mother sat and show you that place.
Yeah, we'll definitely try that.
Yes.
I just looked at the picture of it, and it is such a striking architectural
Isn't it?
achievement. Yes.
Yeah, Trigunatitananda himself designed that.
It's very, I don't know how to describe it. It's Eastern looking, but, the domes, and it's almost like the Eastern Orthodox architecture.
Yeah, there's a lot of that flavor, different flavors of different religions in it, very deliberately designed in. And Trigunatitananda did that himself. And yes, it's the first Hindu temple in the Western Hemisphere. 1905, the first Hindu temple in the Western Hemisphere. And it was, quite a tourist attraction, even in its early days. People would come and see it just as a curiosity. And he would decorate it so beautifully for holidays, for the patriotic holidays of this country. Oh my goodness, there are pictures, you can find them online, of the old temple decorated for 4th of July and so on. It's really quite something. Thank you, Divya. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swayam.
I think Mahamaya is clouding my brain more than usual today. I have so the different bhavas that are suggested when we approach Saguna Brahman, are they can we use the same bhavas towards Mahamaya? Because in a way, I guess Saguna Brahman is also part of Mahamaya, right? Am I confused?
Not in the least confused, dear. One being, two forms. Hmm? Ishvara, Ishwari. Sarada, Ramakrishna. Hmm? Like Radha Krishna, like Sita Ram, Sarada Ramakrishna. So those same bhavas, if you wish to be mother's friend, for example, if you wish to adopt that bhava, just begin to treat her as you would your dearest friend. When the Swami uses the word propitiate, he doesn't mean get down on your hands and knees and, he means be with them as you would be. And I'm glad you brought up the bhavas because that's it. Are you with her as your mother, which she says explicitly, or are you? She says, remember when you are in distress, remember you have a mother. And she says the whole world is your own. The whole world is Mahamaya. So if you wanted to have if you wanted to adopt, it's a stand we take in the beginning. It's a way of being that we adopt before we know the full dimensions of it. If you wanted to be the mother's friend, you would simply begin to treat her like you would your dearest friend and speak to her in that way and expect of her in that way. What a sweet thought that is. What a deeply sweet thought that is for a woman to adopt the bhava of being mother's friend. No reason whatsoever you shouldn't do it. But whatever bhava, whatever attitude you wish to take. There it is.
Thank you.
Very, very good question. Yes, you can adopt any of the bhavas toward the mother. You could become her handmaid. She has them in subtle form. Many people see them. Anything else from anyone before we go on? Okay, we've got almost half an hour left. Swami Saradeshananda wrote in his reminiscences that Swami Brahmananda once visited Jairambati and stayed with Prasanna, one of Holy Mother's brothers. Out of joy, he sang and danced there. Now, it was said of Brahmananda that of all of the disciples, he was the most like Sri Ramakrishna. So he visited Jairambati and stayed with Prasanna, one of the Holy Mother's brothers. Out of joy, he sang and danced there. When Brahmananda visited Calcutta, he stayed at Balaram's house. Occasionally, he came to visit Holy Mother when she was in Calcutta. Swami Prameshananda said, Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda, would go to bow down to the mother, but could not stay long near her. His body trembled when he bowed down to her, and when he returned from her. It seemed Maharaj could see that the mother was all-inclusive. It seemed Maharaj could see that the mother was all-inclusive. The whole universe was contained within her. We could not understand this mysterious phenomenon. Swami Ishananda recalled, Swami Ishananda recalled, one morning at 9 o'clock, Maharaj came to see the mother at Udbodhan from Balaram's house. She sat on her cot, veiling herself with a chadar and dangling her feet. She asked me to call Maharaj, who was in Sharat Maharaj's room downstairs. Sharat Maharaj had this room where it was his office. Simple. Oh, if you see the pictures of it. This was the General Secretary of the Ramakrishna Order, and his office was simplicity itself. No pomp, no circumstance, just what he needed to do his work. So Holy Mother asked me to call Maharaj, who was in Sharat Maharaj's room downstairs. Maharaj walked up the steps and followed him. I noticed his legs were trembling. Maharaj prostrated before the mother, took the dust of her feet, and asked, Mother, how is Radu? Oh, Radu, where are you? The mother touched Maharaj's chin with her fingers and touched him with her lips and blessed him, placing her hand on his head. The mother then told him of Radu's illness and inquired about Maharaj's health. Maharaj briefly answered the questions and left the room quickly, then returned to Sharat Maharaj's room. I noticed he was perspiring. Maybe we too would come to that state of trembling and perspiring if our eyes were opened to see the mother in all her glory. The mother asked me to arrange a plate with biscuits, oranges, and sweets. She took it from my hand, showed it to the master, took a little with her tongue, and then asked me to carry the plate to Maharaj. He joyfully received the plate. Sharat Maharaj said, Will you eat all of the mother's prasad alone? You see, these brother disciples, they weren't shy with one another. So Swami Saradananda, Sharat Maharaj said, Will you eat all of the mother's prasad alone? Maharaj replied, Sharat, you are having the mother's prasad every day, and now you want to have a share from my plate? All right, please have some. You are the doorkeeper of the mother's house. None can go to her without pleasing you. And it's true that Sharat Maharaj did have prasad from, the mother would feed the master. She would do the worship and feed the master and then distribute the prasad. You are the doorkeeper of the mother's house. None can go to her without pleasing you. Sharat Maharaj immediately replied, Maharaj, it is you who have appointed me. Then both of them enjoyed the mother's prasad and I served 2 glasses of water. Swami Shivananda said, Holy Mother is the ideal of womanhood for this age all over the world. Her life is wonderful. She accepted a human body and lived like any ordinary housewife, though in reality she was none other than the mother of the universe, the primal divine energy. Now, if you want to understand what that means, you really need to read the Chandi. You really need to read the Devi Mahatmyam to know what he's speaking about here. the hymns that are in the Devi Mahatmyam describe in wonderful and beautiful detail what it is he's referring to. She accepted a human body and lived like an ordinary housewife, though in reality she was none other than the mother of the universe, the primal divine energy. She was one of those true, can someone, Mahavidyas? Kali, Tara, Shodashi, and others. She came down to earth as the counterpart of the master to complete his spiritual message. She came down to earth as the counterpart of the master to complete his spiritual mission in this age. How can ordinary mortals understand this? Understand her? Excuse me, I teared up a little and fogged my glasses. How can ordinary mortals understand her? Even we could not understand her in the beginning. She hid her divinity so completely that it was not possible to recognize her real nature. The master alone knew who she really was, and Swamiji knew a little, and Swamiji himself said that. Swamiji himself said that he only knew a little. But what he knew, I don't know if we've read it yet in this book or not. But when, I think it was mentioned early on, when Swami Vivekananda came back from the West, from his first visit to the West, which had been so successful and had been, it had transformed the West's idea of what Indian spirituality was, and so many other things. And Vivekananda returned to India a hero and so on. Well, he came to the mother, and the mother was praising him. And he said to her, with the way it's portrayed, is with complete sincerity and simplicity, "O mother, by your mere will you could raise up thousands of Vivekanandas. By your mere will you could raise up thousands of Vivekanandas." Or maybe he said 1,000, I don't know. But he knew that much. The master alone knew who she really was, and Swamiji knew a little. Our mother's name is Sarada. She is the goddess Saraswati herself. Now, I'd just like all of us to, if you don't know who Saraswati is, I'd like you to look it up, because you can see the tremendous transformation in the world that has taken place because of the attributes of Saraswati. If you look at what the world was in the 1860s, and you look at even what the change while she was still alive, how much change there had been by 1920. Not to mention by 100 years after her birth. All of this incredible arts and music and science and intellectual explosion. This is Saraswati. Our mother's name is Sarada. She is the goddess Saraswati herself. Out of her grace, she bestows knowledge of God, but she bestows all kinds of other knowledge as well. Because all of it, beneath the veil, is knowledge of God. There is nothing but God. So out of her grace, she bestows knowledge of God. Without this knowledge, one cannot have devotion. Pure knowledge and pure devotion are the same. And one can attain both by her grace alone. In March 1892, Swami Shivananda, Ramakrishnananda, and Subodhananda went to visit Holy Mother at Jairambati. Now, this was relatively early on. I said the mother lived until 1920. So in March 1892, Swami Shivananda, Ramakrishnananda, and Subodhananda went to visit Holy Mother at Jairambati. At that time, it was a difficult journey. They informed the mother before they left and got her permission to visit. When they arrived, the mother was very happy. Now, she regarded these as her boys. We think of them as these great swamis that were the head of the order and so on. She regarded them as her children, as her boys. When they arrived, the mother was very happy. She had arranged, and this was in Jairambati, this was no little feat, what we're about to hear about. She had arranged milk, fish, and various vegetables for them. Swami Shivananda recalled, at night, as we were going to bed after dinner, I planned with Swami Ramakrishnananda that we should cook for Holy Mother on the following day. The next morning, when we broached the subject before her after breakfast, she at first laughed at the idea and said, "How can that be, my sons? I am your mother. It is my duty to cook for you. And here you want to cook for me instead? You will hardly be able to bear the smoke in the kitchen." I know these were swamis used to cooking in a very different situation. Jairambati's modest, humble kitchen. You will barely be able to bear the smoke in the kitchen. With such words, she tried to dissuade us, but we did not mind her objections and were firm in our resolve. As a last argument, I said, we come from Brahmin families, so why should you have any objection to taking food from us? Even the master ate my cooking. Ultimately, she had to agree. Swami Ramakrishna and I cooked, and the mother was highly pleased with the food. We stayed with Holy Mother for 3 days. We stayed with Holy Mother for 3 days that time in great joy. Her affection was boundless. She was extremely busy from morning till night so that we might not have the slightest discomfort. After a few days, one night, I had a fever accompanied by shivering, and it increased as the night advanced. I had been feeling feverish since evening. Added to that, I had my supper too, for I could not help taking food in the presence of the mother. All night I passed in an almost unconscious state. In the early hours of the morning, I told Shashi Maharaj, Swami Ramakrishnananda, in the early hours of the morning, I told Shashi Maharaj, brother, no more of this here. If I stay here with my fever, I shall be burdening the mother with great worries. We shall bid farewell to the mother in the morning and leave this place. After that, I do not care what happens. By that he meant, if he dies, he dies. After that, I do not care what happens. He too agreed to the proposal. As soon as the day dawned, we three saluted the mother and left Jairambati. At first, the mother would not agree to our departure so soon, but when she found that we were insistent, she kept silent. On another occasion, Swami Shivananda said, on another occasion, Swami Shivananda said, Sri Ramakrishna incarnated himself in human form for establishing the Yuga Dharma, the religion of this age. Does everyone understand what that means? Is there any question in anyone's mind about that statement? Sri Ramakrishna incarnated himself in human form for establishing the Yuga Dharma, the religion of this age. That doesn't mean he's going to establish a Ramakrishna religion. It means establishing the 4 pillars of Dharma again, reestablishing the 4 pillars of Dharma so that there can be a movement into the Satyug, the golden age. We're in the waning years, although it may be some centuries yet. We're in the waning years of the Kali Yuga. And because these things intersect, it isn't like one goes and then just ends and another begins. They intersect. So we're in the uprising of the Satyug and the decline of the Kali Yuga.
Can I ask a question about that?
Of course, dear.
I think about it often, and it's like it, how it begins. And it seems to me, when you have people that are God's born in human form, like Sri Ramakrishna, or, exceptional figures like great souls, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of like, as Swamiji says, it's like if something's, it's like an action is built up or something is built up out of as something gets grosser and grosser or finer and finer.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like when you have the actions or lifetimes of great souls, they are almost like glimmers of what is to come. That's how I try to look at it anyway.
Very nicely put, Divya. Yes, they are the embodiment of what is to come. we can see in them the embodiment of what is to come. And I sometime later on this year, there'll be a talk on, enough research will be done to make it completely credible about what Satyug really is, what the emerging Satyug is. I'll dig out everything that seems relevant. But these beings, and of course, it's only possible because a being like Sri Ramakrishna incarnates that these others can have the shelter necessary, the refuge necessary to live a life of that level of purity and sanctity. So on another occasion, Swami Shivananda said, Sri Ramakrishna incarnated himself in human form for establishing the Yuga Dharma, the religion of this age. The mother incarnated herself for furthering his mission. So she was this perfect embodiment of what womankind will become in the Satyug. I'll just leave it at that till I know more. How can ordinary mortals understand her? In the beginning, even we, meaning the disciples, the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, did not understand her in the least. She used to keep her divinity such a close secret that one could not understand anything about her. Mother assumed this human body in order to awaken that in the entire womanhood of the world. Doesn't that sound lovely? I mean, it really does. And Swami Vivekananda said that here in the West, it would be the feminine, the women who would lead this forward. And slowly, it's manifesting. As we can see, the first emergence of this fighting spirit in women was kind of rough-edged. But as time goes on, it is becoming more and more clear that the feminine is emerging. We have, as someone pointed out today in the news media, for the first time in U.S. history, when the President of the United States addresses the houses of Congress, the two people sitting behind him will both be women. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. So just a few minutes left. Anything else from anyone before we move on to what Swami Premananda wrote? Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swayam.
did Holy Mother's mother have any, before Holy Mother was born, any sort of message that Holy Mother was an incarnation of Saraswati?
There's nothing I have ever read indicates this. As a matter of fact, her mother was shocked at the way people began to treat Sharada later on. She was, shocked is too strong a word, but surprised and pleased, but certainly not, she didn't think of her in that way. Once again, the mother masking herself, not making herself known. She's still at it, you know. She's still at it. It's so easy just to walk right past that picture in the hall between the door into the chapel and the carpeted part of the chapel itself. It's just so easy to walk right by that picture. And then you think, I just walked right past Mother without saluting her. But she just hides herself. So no, I don't. If anyone knows of anything, but I've read a lot and a lot of biographies of the mother, and it was never mentioned that something happened like happened with Sri Ramakrishna himself. Anything else? All right, it's a little after 9. Ma, 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 bole. Ma, 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 bole. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Ma, 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 ma bole. Shri Devi Durga, Durga bole ma. Shri Devi Durga, Durga bole ma. Ma, 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 ma bole. Sarada Devi, Devi bole ma. Sarada Devi, Devi bole ma. Ma, 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 bole. Sweet Mother Mary, Mary bole ma. Sweet Mother Mary, Mary bole ma. Ma, 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 ma bole. Sweet Mother Mary, Sarada Devi, Sri Devi Durga, Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Dakshina Kali, Kali bole ma. Om. Amen. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in Mother's loving and protective embrace. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right, then. until those of you who wish to join us tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening, of course, we're continuing the study of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, Chapter 4. And then on Saturday at 11 a.m., we are talking about the path of knowledge as talked about by Swami Prabhavananda. And then on Sunday, the talk will be on Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga. And we'll start that with a guided meditation. We'll start that talk with a guided meditation. So, until next time, good night, sweet ones.
Good night, Brother Shankara. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
everyone.